Hello, I'm Ethan Chase, and a New York City-based business growth coach. I work with organizations of all types to help them achieve two major milestones. One is to unleash their people's untapped potential, and with that, to build amazing places to work. I want to spotlight today in one of my CEO coaching corner videos, the work that's being done at Nike, who is in to about 10 plus months of turnaround mode. So shine the spotlight, Nike, one of the most venerable, respected American iconic brands, and one of the most universally recognized organizations. Nike is in hyper mode of just do it on a turnaround plan. So let's go back to September of 2024 when Nike made the announcement that they were bringing in longtime Nike veteran, Elliott Hill, as their president and CEO to lead this turnaround. So this from SGB Media, from their headquarters, Beaverton, Oregon, September 19th, 2024. Board of Directors at Nike announced today, September 19th, 2024, that Elliott Hill would become president and CEO of Nike, effective October 14th. So also in that role as president and CEO, he has for the past 10 and a half months been director of the board of directors and a member of their executive committee. So listen to what the rationale was back in September of last year for bringing Elliott Hill on board in the CEO role. I'm excited to welcome him back. He's been with Nike for 30 years. Given our needs for the future, past performance of the business, and after conducting a thoughtful succession plan, the board concluded it was clear that Elliott's global expertise, leadership style, and deep understanding of our industry and our partners, paired with his passion for sports, our brands, products, consumers, athletes, and employees, make him the right person to lead Nike's next stage of growth, said Mark Parker, who was the executive chairman of Nike. Personally, I've worked with Elliott for more than 30 years, and I look forward to supporting him and his senior management team as they seize the opportunities ahead. So why or what made this happen? As is anything corporate or financial performance, Nike was struggling. So the board of directors at Nike and their CEO at the time, John Donohue, decided that it was time for him to retire in his role as president and CEO. He's going to remain, he has been remaining as an advisor, whatever that means. We're not going to go into that. So you say thank you to the former CEO, done. Leading us through COVID, done. Unwavering support of our investments, they took care of thanking him. Now, listen to what Elliott Hill said when he accepted the opportunity to return. Nike's always been a part of who I am, and I'm ready to help lead it to an even brighter future. So one of the benefits during a succession plan of bringing in somebody who has decades, or in Elliott Hill's case, 32 years of experience is you get somebody who understands where all the bones are buried. Somebody who understands the culture of Nike, helped build Nike, blood, sweat, and tear equity invested over decades, growing the business, understands the industry, competitors, the lay of the landscape. They can hit the ground effectively running. So I've had the privilege of working with the best in the industry, helping to shape our company, Nike, into the magical place that it is today, said Elliott Hill. I'm eager to reconnect with many employees and trusted partners I've worked with over the years, and just as excited to build new, impactful relationships. So he's been at this for 10 months. We're going to do a deep dive into the success, challenges that lay ahead, and also when I do videos like this, I talk a lot about the people side of the business and culture, much more so than strategy, financials, because as I've said before, if you have a great strategy, but you don't have the people in place to lead the organization, it's not going. Also, if you gain operational efficiency, but you really don't leverage your people, the reliance on technological innovation can only get you so far because everybody else has access to it. It's lowest common denominator. It's not competitive advantage. Your people are your competitive advantage. So listen to what Elliott Hill said when he accepted the opportunity to come on board as CEO last October. Together with our talented teams, I look forward to delivering bold, innovative products that set us apart in the marketplace, captivate consumers. So goes into a little bit of background about Elliott Hill's prior 32 years of experience, senior leadership roles, not just in the US, but in Europe. And he was responsible for helping to grow the business to more than 39 billion during his 32 years. He retired in 2020. And at that point, he achieved the highest level was president of consumer and marketplace. So he was responsible when he retired after 32 years of leading all commercial and marketing operations for Nike and the Jordan brand, including P&L responsibility across 4 country global geographies. Okay. So that's that. John Donahue retires as CEO. Elliott Hill steps in. A little bit of information about Nike, which we're not going to get into, but we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the next analysis. So I misspoke before. This is the resource SGB Media, and going back to September 19th, when Nike made the announcement that Elliott Hill would take over. They're getting the band back together. So you bring in talent at the senior most level or senior levels of people who had a passion for, an affinity for, a love for, but also experience over decades built in the business. So that's one of the benefits. You're getting the closest approximation to the most intimate insider who stepped away from a little while. And sometimes having somebody come back who stepped away is an opportunity to take advantage of the fact that they've refreshed, they've recharged, they've refocused themselves to prepare for the task at hand. So the board of directors announced back in September that Elliott Hill would take over the CEO role from John Donahue, effective October 14th. So we talked about, I read the official welcoming back, the thank you of John Donahue as he stepped away, Elliott Hill's explanation of how Nike is so entrenched in his own DNA, his career professional DNA. He's held senior leadership roles at Elliott Hill, talked about that. So, talked about what he did. He's 60 years old when he accepted the opportunity last September to come on board last October. He was doing consulting since he retired in 2020, served in various partnership roles. But I want to talk about his background. And when you're thinking about, as an organization, bringing people in or bringing them back, what the thought process is. So this is somebody who has achieved success in the organization at the highest level. So we talk about compensation and what Elliott Hill is entitled to. But I want to talk around the turnaround plan and the strategy, the decision-making process, because as I said earlier in my intro, when I set this up, Nike's been struggling. A venerable brand, success achieved over going on 50 years, but stuck in the crosshairs of significant changing chaotic times. So the requirement of Elliott Hill in the CEO role he has to achieve certain number of results. He has to rededicate the company to innovation. They damage retailer relationships under John Donahue's tenure, which needs to be repaired. Market shares declining in the US and Europe, and the focus on reviving their core franchises. So there was, for whatever reason, before Elliott Hill accepting CEO role back in September, there was struggles at Nike. So 2 months into his tenure, so he accepted October, this is December, Elliott Hill gets his first shot on Thursday to convince investors he can rescue the flailing sportswear company, the global brand icon, after a year of layoffs and cratering or declining sales. So layoffs, declining sales. That's what was going on. So it wasn't enough back in December for him to have a wonderful shareholder meeting. To satisfy the markets that Nike competes in, Elliott Hill needed to and continues every day in his turnaround, which is 10 and a half months long. He needs to lay out a plan to boost innovation, repair relationships with retailers, and steady sales at a brand that was dealing with a loss of market share to other companies like Deckers, Hoka, and OnCloud. So this is important stuff. He's really under Elliott Hill, really under the microscope because he's given himself so much time to come up with a structure and a game plan, said Jay Woods, chief global strategist and investment banking from Freedom Capital. Referring to Nike's decision to postpone its November Investor Day as Hill was settling into his new job, which he started on October 14th. Okay, so analysts frame expectations when a company's going through turnarounds. So analysts said they were giving Elliott Hill and Nike the benefit of the doubt that it takes a few financial quarters to turn around a financial underperforming, even as respected and reputable a global brand icon organization like Nike. It takes time. But Nike's replacement of numbers-driven CEO John Donahue in October with company veteran Elliott Hill. He started at Nike working as an intern while still in college, Texas Christian, as an intern in 1988. The board saying they're giving him the benefit of the doubt and investors saying they're giving him the benefit of the doubt is not something you hear frequently in corporate America. Why? Because they understand the magnitude of the importance of the turnaround initiative. So it wasn't exactly a short lease, according to Morningstar's analyst David Schwartz. Okay, so look at Nike brands and you understand the rationale for the need for change in bringing in Nike veteran Elliott Hill the end of 2024. When you look at the value of Nike's brands with US retailers, you see the decline. You see the decline from 2022 to 2024. So you compare 3 years of data and you see across their brands, Dunk and Air Force and Air Max and Pegasus and Jordan and Converse. What do you see? You see declining sales across its cash cow brands. So shoppers, the market is cooling or less receptive to Nike as a brand lifestyle choice. Oh, that's good coffee. So consumer intentions to buy Nike products is lower than it was a year ago. According to data from 100X, a company that uses surveys to gauge public sentiment about brands and retailers, decline is sharpest among young consumers. That's the core demographic. That's the core demographic. So that's what you want to know. So I'm sorry, I didn't acknowledge the resource Reuters. And by the way, all the resources that I reference will be found in the description below in case you want to do a deeper dive and go in and see some of the more narrative support data. So new Nike CEO Elliott Hill gets his chance to lay out a turnaround plan going back to December. So talked about the struggling with the brands and declining sales. We talk about a very core consumer segment, younger consumers, being lukewarm or less receptive to considering the brand in their purchase decisions. Nike sales at retailers like Foot Locker, Walmart, Target, and Dick's Sporting Goods are down 7% end of last year from prior year, ending November 30th, 2024. So 2023. So online sales increased a percentage point over a year, but that's nothing. That's marginal. Nike has struggled since deciding in 2020 to move away from third-party retailers. In February, less than 2 months after announcing cost cuts, it said it would lay off 2% of its 80,000 employees. And this is going back to 2024. So when you're struggling, when you have less demand for your product, when you are struggling with increasing costs, declining sales, alienating trading partners, and or retailers or a significant portion of your sales, things need to happen. So Nike in this instance wasn't just making a cosmetic change or doing lip service to change. Their board of directors made a concerted effort to bring in somebody who they felt, Elliott Hill, could turn the company around. Through Elliott Hill, Nike has vowed to restore relationships with their retailers. Many analysts expect Nike's turnaround to hinge on reviving the core business that made it successful in the first place, which was running. At a running conference last month in Austin, Texas, Nike announced it would double down on 3 running franchises, Pegasus, Structure, and Vomero, launching various iterations of each shoe next year, this year, at different price points, according to Telsey Advisory Group. So that's part of Hill's redevelopment or turnaround initiative. What does that mean? You want somebody in a leadership role who has a vision. I talk about this a lot in my CEO coaching corner, and when I talk to founders and I talk to entrepreneurs, in order to move people, in order to move markets, in order to motivate your organization or build a tremendously powerful organizational culture, you need people who commit to your vision, your mission, your core values. Employees, consumers, partners. So Elliott Hill has a vision for change. What's the vision? Let's talk this through. As many of you know, okay, so this is somebody, Daniel Yaw Miller, who's covered Nike. So he writes, going back to December 2024, that I've covered them as a sports correspondent. He knows Elliott Hill, being an insider who worked at Nike in various leadership roles for 32 years. So he knows of what he speaks. New CEO and Nike lifer Elliott Hill, who spent his first 60 days in the role traveling around the world, visiting regional Nike teams and key retail partners to understand what the brand needed to do to get back to its winning ways, Elliott Hill wasted no time in setting the record straight. He started by addressing his view of how Nike ran off course and lost touch with its culture. There were 5 key pillars, which, according to Elliott Hill, resulted from decisions taken by the company leading up to and during the ill-fated John Donahue Nike era, which lasted between January of 2020 and September of 2024. So here are the key identified challenges that Elliott Hill came in and tackled. This is important. To move an organization, truly transform it as a leader, mandating top-down shift in focus. You need to have a sense of purpose. You need to be transparent. You need to communicate early, often at the very beginning, and you need to set the tone. And also him doing a world tour, going around the world when he first started to talk to people, employees. What do you think about the brand, the company? What do you like? What's been a challenge? Equally important to talk to your partners, retailers, other groups of stakeholders. This is the short list of 5 key initiatives that Elliott Hill came away with as leading this turnaround at Nike. They lost a sense of purpose. We lost our obsession with sport. How does that happen at a company like Nike? Just do it. Phil Knight. How do you lose focus of your commitment to sport? Moving forward, said Elliott Hill, we'll lead with sport and put the athlete at the center of every decision. They became a fashion brand, and they lost sight of the whole value of Nike, which was founded on athlete performance. Short-sighted merchandising and dependence on sales of Air Force One, Dunks, and certain Jordan models. A reliance on a handful of sportswear silhouettes is not who we are at Nike. A reliance on a handful of sportswear silhouettes isn't us. We will get back to leveraging deep athlete insights to accelerate our innovation, design, product creation, and storytelling. Sport is what authenticates our brand. Sport, Nike. Synonymous. Lose track of your identity, and then you lose track of your brand marketing, which follows. So I teach a lot of marketing courses to a lot of Gen Zs and millennials. I've been teaching it for 12 years in 10 college universities. This is important. As a CEO, as a leader in your organization, you need to understand the market determines what your brand ultimately stands for. I also see, said Elliott Hill, that we've shifted investments away from creating demand for our brand to capturing demand through performance marketing for our Nike digital business. We're going to reinvest in our brands to create stories that inspire and emotionally connect with our consumers during important sports moments and critical product launches. That was what Nike has always stood for since its founding back in the 70s. You know, when you think about Philip Knight running track at the University of Oregon and selling his own sneakers out of the trunk of his car, that's Nike's. That's their entity. That's their value. That's their brand. So the John Donahue era during that 4-year period, 20 to 24, centralization of decision-making and disempowerment of regional teams in key cities, which used to drive the brand's connection to sneaker and sports culture. Once you centralize, you're losing track of the 21st century. You're just not operating in today's world of doing business. You need to decentralize. You need to move away from this command control pyramid structure and more to a flatter matrix organization, which democratizes power of decision-making from the top of Lord overseers all the way down to the people on the front line who are interacting with culture, interacting with your consumers, interacting with local taste, preferences, lifestyles. It's kind of how X Games got started from its humble origins through ESPN. So, over-reliance on DTC channels, which saw Nike lose out to other brands in the wholesale space over the past few years. Prioritizing Nike digital revenue has impacted the health of our marketplace, said Elliott Hill. We will build back an integrated marketplace across Nike direct and wholesale. So you want to give dedicated effort, resource, strategic planning, thoughtfulness to multiple channels that serve your markets. So what are we saying? We're saying that Nike is in effect broken, was broken. Okay, so this, now we've moved into 2025. This is January. So going to Fortune. In the summer of 1990, Nike threw itself a rager of a party to celebrate the opening of its now iconic campus in Beaverton, Oregon, its global headquarters. On the banks of a glittering pond at the heart of campus, co-founder Phil Knight, the shoe dog himself, hosted the sneaker and apparel company's biggest company top executives. The distinguished guest list very much did not include, then, in 1990, a 26-year-old third-year sales associate by the name of Elliott Hill. Now they're CEO. So we're talking about 32 years of experience at Nike. So why do retired CEOs like Elliott Hill keep coming back? I mentioned this. I alluded to this. Sometimes it's the best thing for leaders in your organization to step away. Heck, Steve Jobs had to step away from Apple. Granted, he was forced out. And then he had time away to kind of consider how his narcissistic control freak tendencies led him to kind of steer Apple awry. But sometimes executives need to step away to recharge, refocus, recommit, do other things, and rededicate their efforts to be optimally positioned to lead a turnaround. So let's talk about why CEOs come back, and using Elliott Hill in this example. Okay. As we walked along the Ronaldo Nazario soccer field on Nike's 400-acre Beaverton, Oregon campus, Elliott Hill reflected on his time away from Nike. There were moments after board meetings, for example, where my role was to steer, guide, and provide perspective. But then you leave, he left, and you don't have the responsibility for executing. So the CEO of an organization, she or he, or they have that void of being directly in control. You have your hand on the heart of the organization, and then you're out. One day you're in, one day you're out. It's a sentiment many former executives share. After retiring as CEO of Ulta back in 2021, I'm going to show you. Mary Dillon reappeared as CEO of Foot Locker a year later. I didn't realize how much I would miss having one big thing to focus on, she told Fortune back in 23. Just like Home Depot CFO Carol Tomei was retirement mode on a farm in Georgia. She was asked to take the helm at UPS. She was on board. I really do like to make money and I like to generate value, she explained. So, for retired executives like Elliott Hill, who came back as CEO of Nike, the allure of the corner office is undeniable. The thrill of the challenge, the intellectual stimulation, yes, the prestige. Hill, just over 2 months, so this was going back to January when they were looking at December of 2024, which is now 10 and a half months ago. The appeal of this is undeniable. The thrill of the challenge we talked about, but Hill, even back in December of 2024, admits he has something to prove. So that's why you come back to the game. Athletes, musicians, anybody who had achieved the height of success at one point in their career, they miss that feeling of being on top. And that's why they return. According to Elliott Hill, there was a moment when I started to think to myself, is this really what the rest of my life is going to be like? And that's pretty much a feeling many people who get into retirement acknowledge. When he received the call back in September of 2024 to return to Nike, Nike was struggling with a 60% drop in stock value. And that's why they replaced John Donahue. A 60% drop in stock value from its 2021 high, driven by declining sales, strained relationships with retail partners, and growing competition from Brooks Running, Hoka, New Balance. So competition never slows down. But when you damage your performance, it needs to be rectified. When he was contacted by the Nike board back in 2024, Elliott Hill said he didn't hesitate when the opportunity to lead Nike arose. I get the phone call, my whole world turns upside down. So they had him at hello. So what is he doing to build out his team? Going back to June of this year, okay, so 2 months ago now. 8 months into his role as CEO, he's changed the leadership structure. He's brought in new talent from outside. At the same time, several executives who maybe were associated with that challenged financial performance recent past, they retired, they left. Vaya con Dios, thank you for your service. Goodbye, golden parachute. He's restructured Elliott Hill, the leadership team at Nike. It's included more than 10 new title changes, retirements, and additions to their leadership ranks. So he's getting the team that he needs to work with on board. That's what any leader does. Okay? Building his team to execute on the key initiatives I referenced before, those 5 key pillars of change management that are needed. Rebuilding relationships with wholesale partners, right-sizing key footwear franchises, established brands in their brand portfolio like Air Force, One, and Dunk. Sales in the retailer's most recent quarter tumbled 9%. Understanding that investors, board of directors are giving him, Elliott Hill, and his new leadership team the benefit of the doubt that it takes time to turn the battleship around. You don't just say, we're here, we want to go there. You need to get the team in place. You need to understand what the market is telling you, and then you need to act on your strategic initiatives. And that's what Elliott Hill has been focusing on for the last 10 months at Nike. He was tasked with executing these key changes and winning back market share from lost customers. And that was responsible for his hiring. So he retired from Nike, Elliott Hill, in 2020 after 32 years of servitude. And he comes back to the activewear giant. He's not shying away from change. He's talking about change, changing the leadership team, changing the focus, repairing damaged relationships. That's what he needs to do. So having said that, he's talking about Nike moving on. And this isn't powerful. So this is powerful stuff. So in December of 2024, newly installed CEO Elliott Hill went on a listening tour, spent 2 months talking to partners, vendors, employees, talk to everybody to understand what Nike needed to do to rekindle its obsession with sport. So let's talk about financial performance, not as a leading indicator, but as the result of things that are done correctly and not correct. So it's always dangerous as a leader to make a decision based on financial considerations without having the understanding of shifts and changes and rededication, refocusing, restructuring that's needed to get you from here to there. So, but Elliott Hill and Nike's CFO, Matthew Friend, have been clear that Nike first needed to endure further financial stress as it repositioned and liquidated inventory. So we're going to make change. Here's our game plan. Everybody get on board, but this is what we're going to do. And in the interim, it's going to take time to successfully navigate. And financially, we're going to need the cushion of time to shift our strategic focus. So on Thursday, Nike reported that revenue for fiscal quarter 4 of 2024, the 3 months through May 31st, was down 12% year over year to $11.1 billion, while full year revenue declined 10%. Earnings fared even worse, with quarterly net income falling 86% from $1.5 billion in 2024 to just $211 million. Full year net income down 44%. So Nike direct revenues down 14%, wholesale income fell 9%. So the financial performance, you see the continued struggles, but that is just the result. What we're talking about are the delivery of Elliott Hill and his leadership team on those 5 pillars and key initiatives to right the ship. The results we're reporting today are not up to the Nike standard, Elliott Hill told his investors. The work that we're doing now to reposition the business through our win now actions is having an impact. From here on out, we expect our business results to improve. It's time to turn the page. It's time to turn the page. The torch has been passed to a new generation at Nike. Hill pointed to some early signs that Nike's beginning already to emerge stronger, noting that Vomero running shoe line is now a 100 million business. Remember, that was one of the key initiatives, was to dedicate support to grow that brand and its portfolio. And Nike's holiday season order book is up over last year. So look at the trend lines. Look at the narrative arc through the transformation of the business in terms of where you're going and how Elliott Hill is steering the ship in that direction. CFO Friend, presented new guidance on the current quarter, noting that revenue is going to be down by only mid-single digits. Okay, so level setting expectations of financial performance at the CFO level that are in parallel, that fall lockstep with the CEO's strategic vision of new initiatives, a new strategic path forward to right the ship at Nike. Nike share price has surged on its earnings report, climbing more than 10%. So the market is understanding what's going on at Nike. Okay, beautiful. So things are starting to happen at Nike, as you can kind of see. So we're going back to about 2 months ago, the end of June. Nike stock soared 60% as the CEO says that the turnaround initiative can only go one way, and that's up from here. The stock rally comes despite Nike reporting its worst sales drop in 5 years, but that beat Wall Street's estimate for even steeper climb. So Wall Street thought, you're going to do bad, really bad. And Elliott Hill says, hold on a second, we're struggling to get through, but we're making all the right decisions. We just need the benefit of cushion of time, understanding. Okay. Nike stock surged as much as 16% at the announcement at the investor shareholder meeting, off the sportwear giant's best trading day in years after CEO Elliott Hill reassured his investors that the company's turnaround strategy is finally starting to show results. Okay. From here, we expect our business results to improve. Of course, what is he going to say? We expect to continue to struggle. So you want to frame, for positioning purposes, As the leader, you're charting the course for a clear path for others to follow. The stock rally comes even despite Nike reporting its worst sales drop in 5 years. Revenue last quarter fell 12% to 11 billion, which I mentioned. But investors don't see that in and of itself. That's not just the totality of the picture. The view is that from the market's perspective, that Hill has a plan, and it's a viable plan, and it makes sense. It's a dramatic reversal after Nike shares lost a third of their value over the last 12 months. So we see where you're going, Elliott Hill. We've got your back. Your strategy makes sense to us to right the ship. Analysts say Hill's laser focus on sports performance products as opposed to lifestyle categories that John Donahue led, like Air Force Ones and Dunks, is resonating with consumers and investors alike. We see you, Elliott Hill. We get what you're doing. We support it. One bright spot, as I mentioned before, with the Vomero brand. The Vomero 18 running shoe helped return its category, the running category, to growth stage. At the same time, Elliott Hill is mending relationships with retailers. We see this as investors and as consumers. Maybe you're starting to feel it differently, but you see it. But here's the thing. Trump's ridiculous tariff wars are affecting Nike as they are many other companies. But here's how Nike and Elliott Hill are dealing with that. Hill's efforts come as Nike grapples with tariffs that could add $1 billion to its cost, to its bottom line. The company plans surgical price increases to offset the impact and is reducing the share of footwear imports from China. Has no choice, it has to. Currently, that China import percentage